Episode 3, Mark Grain.
How did you get into motor racing? Because I don't actually know
Well,
that.
I mean, I'm more than happy to talk about me. That's my favorite subject. So yeah.
Welcome to the Two Mechanics podcast. Kenny Handkammer and Mark Grain have 18 Formula One World Championships between them, have been in the Guinness Book of World Records twice. They have over 30 years of motorsport stories between them, not to mention the 40,000 beers. Cheers. What you say?
So, Kenny, what are we saying?
Well, Mark, what do you want to say? I mean, the champagne's been drunk, the trophies have been picked up. Hopefully everybody's off on vacation now, and then it'll be a mad rush to get into next season. So as we haven't got a race to talk about, I'd like to talk about you. I'd like to ask you a few questions. Obviously, we've known each other for 30-odd years, but this is beneficial to our listeners. And, I want to start off with, how did you get into motor racing? Because I don't actually know.
Well, I mean, I'm more than happy to talk about me. That's my favorite subject. So, yeah.
You're certainly very highly skilled at that, yeah.
Well, thank you very much. How did I get started? Well, so I'm going to go back to my grandfather on my father's side, and he was a farmer in Derbyshire, quite close to Donington Park, right, motor racing circuit.
Yeah.
And my grandfather was good friends with another local farmer, a fellow called Reg Parnell, who happened to be a farmer and a Grand Prix driver. Would you believe?
I've heard of him. Yes, I know of him.
Yeah, and Reggie's son Tim Parnell was quite a big thing in motor racing in the 60s, 70s, and through into the 80s as well. So anyway, my grandfather was friends with Reg, and they kept the same type of cattle. And Reg drove around in this Aston Martin, and then they go to Scotland together in this Aston Martin, buying cattle from up in Scotland. So I think that had an effect on my dad. And my dad got into cars rather than farming. He'd help out on a farm as a young man and all the rest of it. And but my dad was really into cars, and I'm sure that was a consequence. And he grew up with this Grand Prix driver coming into the farmyard. You can imagine that in this day and age. Think about that for a minute. So so then he started his own small business, and a partner of his over again towards Donington Park, a small town called Melbourne, and DP. Rally cars and so on for him and his partner, and they had this business, and so because of that, I grew up in and around that sort of environment, and then when it came to leaving school, I wanted to go to college and get qualified and doing an HND, but also working with cars and doing all that sort of business. But I guess my big break came with via the pub, which is where all the best business deals get done, as you and I both know.
Obviously.
There was this fellow I got introduced to in my local pub. This is when I was around 20 years old, something like that. And I was cracking on at college and cracking on doing learning the trade and working with cars and sprint cars and hill climb cars, doing all that sort of stuff. And this fellow had connections into a Formula 3 team that was based in Woking in Surrey. And he said, "Do you want to come along with me? I can't pay you any money. Do you want to come and help out?" And I was like, yeah, of course I do. So I was volunteering and giving up my time and doing that. And that team was called Bowman Racing, which was owned by this fellow called Steve Holman, but his nephew was a fellow called Trevor Carlin, and many of our listeners might have heard of Trevor Carlin if they're real sports fans. Trevor, infamous Trevor Carlin, and Trev and his uncle had this really cool, successful Formula 3 team, and they offered me a job there. So and that is how it started back in 1989.
Wow! And then you went on, further up the chain like we all did, which I think we can go into that further probably in. Well,
yeah, I mean that was
now if you want.
That was the start. Well, yeah, I mean that was the start of it, and in that first year in 1989 with Bowman Racing, with Trev, and I say Trev's still a very good, very close friend of mine to this day, and he lives just around where we both live out in Hampshire, and he's actually only like 10-15 minutes away from me these days.
Probably go to the same boozer, I guess.
Well, funnily, now that you mention it, Ken, actually we do, yes.
Shock horror.
And yeah, and I mean, in 1989, think about this. It was my first year in proper full time motorsport. You know, and in British Formula 3, which was at a high standard, a good level.
Yeah, very competitive. Yeah, and then look at the drivers that came from that year, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, and you had Alan McNish and Mika Hakkinen and one of our drivers, David Brabham. And in 1989, we won the A Class Championship and the B Class Championship in British Formula 3. We went out at Macau. We finished second. There used to be this thing called the Super Prix. We actually got beat. Yeah, well, we got beat in the Super Prix to second place, but there was a pit stop competition in that race, and Formula 3 normally doesn't have pit stops, right? It only in, you know, if you've got a flat tire, you've got to come in. It's not
short races,
standard practice, yeah. But for that one race, we had to change tires, and we won the fastest pit stop challenge. And there's this great cool photograph of us with all of the team there, and they gave us the money. I think it was £1,000, but it was in pound coins. I think sure it was 2 bags of £500 coins. We got a picture in the pit lane there of everybody, and you know, there's so many still good mates to this day, and
that's a proper bag of sand, that, isn't it?
That's a proper bag of sand. Yeah, exactly. So that was my intro to motor racing, and I thought, oh, this is awesome. This is, and you know, yeah, that was it. What a great way to start.
So where did you venture up from there?
So I did 2 years in Formula 3, and they were successful years, race wins and so on. And at the end of that, I was quite ambitious, and I started to think about moving on up the categories. I did initially think about Formula 3000, which was, for everybody listening, Formula 3000 was it was previously called Formula 2, and it's called Formula 2 again. So it was a stepping stone between F3 and F1. And I was thinking about going and doing 3000. And then, but then there was a vacancy at the Benetton Formula 1 team.
As I know it well.
As you know well, Kenny. And of course, that's where we met. And yeah, there was an opportunity there, and it was a bit of flux at that time. And Benetton were they had a base in Surrey, and they still had a base in Witney in Oxfordshire, and there was this opportunity in Surrey, which so it was, you know, kind of around the corner from me. And
that's working for John Barnard, right? So I mean, we all
that was JB. Yeah,
so John's been, I mean, one of the few legends designers in Formula 1.
I mean, absolutely. You think of John's success, and yeah, it was a good opportunity. Fantastic to you know, get that, be selected and get that leg up into Formula 1, and that was a guy called Mark Owen, who I know, Ken, he's still a good mate of yours, but
yes.
Again, very very good friend of mine, and again by coincidence, you know, Mark lives about 10 minutes away from here in Hampshire. Just so we've kind of we've congregated to this area. Would you believe it's all kind of coincidental? But yeah, that was the introduction into Formula 1 with Benetton.
And further on from there, that was what year? That was 1990.
Yeah, tail end of 1990, and yeah, that's when I joined.
So you were Benetton for how many years? Would you just do a year, then went to Williams? Was it?
Yeah, that was it. There was it was a bit of a state of flux with Benetton and Surrey and Witney and Oxfordshire and the whole thing, and some management changes, and so John JB Barnard, he left, so we all moved up to Oxfordshire to join, shall we say, the main team, and that's when you and I were properly working together.
It became very unstable, didn't it, around that time?
Yeah, exactly, and there was a lot of instability surrounding the entire team.
Well, the whole sport at that time, actually, the whole, you know.
Yeah, and we had successive management changes, if you remember, and I got approached. I knew that there was a job going at Williams, and I was just looking for a little bit more stability and, you know, a little bit more, shall we say, peace of mind, and so
Williams have always been a stable team.
Yeah,
especially at that era. You know, they'd just come out of the 80s where they've been winning everything and
this was it.
Still being successful.
And so I got approached there, so I went and had a conversation, and again I was offered a job. So I was like, well, I'm going to take it. I'm going to go. A big part of me would have liked to have stayed at Benetton. There were just so many good people working there, and you know, friends that are still friends to this day. You and I, obviously, on this podcast, we've known each other for all these years. But when we think of Jonathan Wheatley, who's now the team principal at the Audi F1 team, for example, you know, and it's an endless list, and you know, I know we want to talk about and get some of those guys onto this in the future, but some really good people there. But I just wanted a little bit of stability in life, if you know what I mean, and just and I didn't feel that Benetton could give that, but Williams definitely did. So went and joined, and that was 1992.
And you were only there a year or two, wasn't you?
No, I was with Williams for 92, 93, and 94.
Okay. Yes.
So there were strong championship years, 92 with Nigel, and then 93 with Alan. And you know, romping home to drivers' championships and constructors' championships. You know, I won't say easily, because nothing in motor racing is easy. And I remember we would gather around our team meetings with Patrick Head, you know, and in 92, when it felt like it was, you know, that we really got to try hard to not win a race, Patrick kept drumming it into us. You can't take your foot off the throttle. We've got to keep pushing. We have to keep pushing. We have to keep pushing. And in those days, in that time, the entire Formula One team was 200 people. That's everybody, from Frank and Patrick down to, you know, a guy who was sweeping the floor. It was that was it. There was 200 people.
Oh yeah.
So
I totally remember when I joined Benetton, it was under 100.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So you I think for everybody listening, you have to you really have to get across the fact that everybody played a part. Absolutely. There's the old story, isn't there, about there was some guy on a tour around like Cape Canaveral or something like that, and there was a guy went walking through, and he was carrying a broom, and this guy on this tour stopped this fella and said, "Oh, what do you do here?" And he said, "I help to send rockets to the moon." And I was a fucking lovely story. And that's really how it felt, certainly in those days in Formula One. Everybody played a part in winning races. And
you wore multiple hats, didn't you? You had to wear multiple hats. It wasn't, this isn't my job.
Yeah.
You know, we had to do, if you had to, you know, during a race weekend, go and, you know, build some dampers, right? And get them on the dyno machine, etc.
Yeah. And
you had to do it for all three cars, because we had a T car back then. It was very different.
Yeah, and again, you know, I've on a previous podcast I've spoken about Frank, and he was just an awesome fella. He really was just a great guy to work with. One story I got to tell you. So Frank would come in the morning, and he would he'd exercise. So he's in the chair, right, in the race and test bays. And Frank would come in morning, say good morning to all of us, and then he'd wheel up and down for his exercise, right? Stretching his arms and pushing and so on. And at the end of the race and test bays was another end bay kind of deal where all the bodywork was stored and that sort of stuff, and where all the wings went. And I was in there with this guy, and we're talking, and so just doing stuff, just doing work. And Frank will go up and down. Then on his like third or fourth lap, right behind us, we heard this clang, right, and it was Frank, and he'd run into this like storage cabinet at the end of this bay.
Not another shunt, Frank. God.
So of course we turned around all in shock, and he turned around to us. He goes, "Oh, it's okay, boys. I just missed my braking point." He just backed up, turned around, and off he fucked on another lap.
I was surprised he didn't have an electric wheelchair because the height of, technology and stuff, but he was still very manual and, probably good with exercise.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is great. Oh, great.
So
and
that,
again, well, one more Frank story. I remember he got to get to Heathrow, and in those days, all of the team owners and everything were always having meetings at Heathrow, always having a meeting at Heathrow, and so and
that's
Frank
because you used to fly people in, fire them, and then they used to fly out again.
that's it. Yeah. So Frank was late for this meeting, and the one of the van drivers, Spud, his nickname was.
I know Spud.
I'm sure he's So Spud was Spud was taking Frank to Heathrow. Got him in the car, and off they set. And Frank was, "Come on, Spud, you really got to put your foot down. I'm running late here. I don't want to be late. I really can't be late. You really got to put your foot down." And off they set. And he wasn't going fast enough. And Frank said, "Spud, I've told you, got to go faster. So Spud really starts leaning on it. And of course, Frank's got the belt on and all the rest of it. But of course, he starts to kind of, move around in the passenger seat a little bit and all the rest of it. So then Spud just put out his left arm, push it, and Spud's a big guy. And he's holding Frank back into the chair, and he's driving with one hand. And Frank's going, "That's it, now crack on. Come on. There we go." It's fucking awesome. Yeah. Always the racer. Always, Frank never lost it. Always that, that real hard edge. Fantastic guy.
Amazing. So that was 94, and then you went to McLaren, right? 95.
Yeah, 95. So I never moved away.
What was your role there? Remind me.
At McLaren when I joined.
Yeah.
So I joined McLaren, but it was the division of McLaren at the time. It was called McLaren Cars.
Oh, yes, I remember now.
Yeah, and it was the famous McLaren F1 road car that those guys had developed and prototyped and was starting to roll out in production. But it was again another old mate of ours, Kenny, Bill Harris, sadly no longer with us. Bill phoned me up and said, "Look, we're going to build a race version of the F1 road car. Are you interested?" And I'd never moved away from Surrey, so the whole commute part of it was that made life a lot easier. And I was very keen to start off with something small that you could really play a big part in because it was tiny. And that's
a great vision, because when you get into a team, you find yourself you're so lucky and so privileged to be in a Formula One team, then not to say taking a step back, but certainly changing things is a big decision.
Well, the team boss at Williams at the time was a fellow called Ian Harrison, and he was like he was the team manager reporting into Frank. Yeah, and a great guy. And I handed him my notice. I went to see Ian, and he said, "Well, why are you going? We don't like to see people leave, and sure can't. He's kind of anything you want to do we can do this. You keep you here, do all that sort of business." And I said, I'm going because it's a small thing. It's going to get bigger. I want to try and grow with it." And he said, "I can't fault your logic." And he just, shook me by the hand and wished me the best of luck and said, it's great when if you leave somewhere and somebody says you're always welcome back. It's a big compliment, isn't it? It goes a long way, and a mark of the man as well. Ian's a good human being, So
yeah. I think the other thing that I always say, and I've said it all through my career, because we saw many changes in Formula One, many staff changes. We've been in a few incidents where people have sort of left badly, but you never know who your next boss is going to be, especially in that small, intense environment. As I remember one incident with an aerodynamicist that left Benetton and went to Ferrari, and basically told the bosses where to go. "I'm off to Ferrari. See you later." And then he turned. Then who he handed to notice in turned up at Ferrari as his boss. So he didn't last very long.
No. I think again for anybody listening, I mean, for what can he say now? Even as the huge expansion that both of us have seen in motorsport, motor racing, and Formula One over the years, it really is still this kind of tight knit world. Very, it's not insular, but it's you'll it'd be very rare to not know somebody at another team, and that goes from almost like at grassroots level all the way through to the pinnacle in Formula One. You're always going to know somebody who knows somebody. That is motor racing, which in itself that might sound like a negative thing, but actually it's a really good thing. It means there's always somebody out there who's prepared to help you. There's always there is to work in motorsport is like a family feel. That sounds a bit trite or anything, something like that. But honestly, I'm struggling to think right now of all of the big teams, and over in the US and over in Europe and all the rest of it. Just know
Well, I
people,
think
just work
it's
people.
everything else that goes with it. We all end up on the same airplanes going different countries, and we're back in the days. Occasionally, we used to meet up down the back of the plane and drink it dry, etc., and all these other mischief things. That
I don't know
when
how
you
some
go
of those
away
planes
with
didn't tip up sometimes.
yeah, when you go away with like 5 teams of 30 people all on one aircraft, it can get a little bit sketchy, to say the least. But it's a great way for relationships and build friends. And like I said, like I've taken out of from very early experience was, and I use it now. You never know who your next boss is going to be, so just
Exactly.
always leave on good terms. Be
Yeah.
professional, keep it clean.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's a photograph out on social media at the moment of Lando and Zach and a few other people flying out to Uzbekistan, wasn't it, for the FIA awards, end of
Yeah.
season awards, and so there's Zach, and then one of the other people in the photograph is Alejandro Agag. So that's my old boss, and that's the boss, my current boss, and there you go in one photograph, bang. So that's it. That's exactly to your point, Ken. That's exactly to your point. Yeah.
So you set up the McLaren um, F1 car series, if you like, because I remember there was a
Yeah, well,
champion.
we built a GT racing version of it, and
Yeah, I remember.
there's honestly there were four of us working on the car, and I think there were two, maybe three design engineers, and that was it in entirety. And
Yeah,
then
not exactly overstaffed then.
oh God, no, it was tiny, and uh, I remember running the car for the first time at a place called Chobham, a small sort of industry test track, really close by to Woking, tiny place. And we ran it there on a cold, damp January night, and then we took it back to the factory. Quick turnaround service. Went to Silverstone again in January.
Everybody
One
loves a
day,
bit of January testing, don't they? Especially in the
oh
UK.
man,
Not
and
like you
then
used to fly anywhere exotic like they do. They go to Bahrain or
God
something.
grief. No, and then it was then like a few days after that. Then we were off to Barcelona.
Okay.
For a 3-day test. But again, same amount of people. It was tiny, tiny team. And I mean, I could talk for hours on this project, so I'm gonna.
No,
I'm not
you
gonna.
do.
I won't
Yeah.
bore you. So the
Because
upshot is,
we will have some listeners. So yeah.
well, the upshot of it is this, from this tiny, tiny team and this car that had hardly any money spent on it. Eventually, we McLaren cars started to make these GT versions that sold them on to customers, but we took our car chassis one and we raced it in Le Mans that year in 1995, and we enlisted the assistance of a very good friend of mine, Paul Lanzanti. We won. We won first time out, and that meant that
Congratulations. That's
McLaren,
massive.
yeah, became the first team and the face of the planet to win Monaco, the Indy 500 and the Le Mans 24 Hour. So that
Fantastic.
was some achievement for what was a really, I can't tell you what a small team it was, and how such a great sense of satisfaction and achievement in that win. Really did. And that car's gone on to be the most valuable car in the McLaren collection. I think that last valuation, it was like $75 million or something like that. So
Wow.
it's incredibly, yeah.
And
Again,
that's your car, right? So
I remember it as, it was a bare tub, it was a bare chassis, and we were like,
what we're gonna
and really,
do?
we were coming up with ideas of what it should look like on the workshop floor, and then the design engineers would come down and go, yeah, we like that, we'll do that, and then they would do the drawing afterwards, and it was all kind of like that. So yeah, good time, hard work, fucking hard work, late nights,
Did you do it
all
with
the
it?
way through
Did you
the
do it with
night.
the pit, the old pits or the new pits at Le Mans?
It was a new piece. Yeah, it
Oh, that's
was.
luxury. You didn't have the same experience, which we talk about at another stage of our podcast of the old Le Mans pit with the alleyway that everybody had to walk up and down with, smelling of
Yes,
undesirable things. So,
thankfully that I never experienced that. I've got that.
sometimes you need the experience just to appreciate what you got. So that was, you smashed out Le Mans, fantastic. You'd gone
Yeah.
out of Formula One and then decided to go back. When was that?
Well, what happened is McLaren, because on the back of this success, and that car had a BMW engine, so BMW were keen to build more of a relationship with McLaren and do some more motorsport things, and so I actually ended up being chief mechanic for a BMW touring car development program within McLaren. It's not very well known. It really isn't. Not a lot of people knew that McLaren even bothered, were involved in touring cars at all. So I did that for a couple of seasons. And that was a good experience because now if I'm more chief mechanic, so then you're thinking about not just the car, but you're thinking about, well, what spares have we got? What uh, is is the circuit all booked up? And can we?
Yeah.
Is there somewhere where we can get lunch? And all of that sort of stuff. You're starting to think more of
Yeah, and
that
it's
bit
also
more
managing people, right? It's a new
yeah,
experience of having a team of people that you need to direct.
yeah,
You need to give them, the opportunity to do a good job, and all those skills that you
that's it.
learn as being a people manager. And actually, the the hard thing about it is all the good thing you can say is we do it through undesirable hours all the time. So to keep people motivated and managing in a good way is a great trait.
You're absolutely right. I think a lot of the things that I was starting to learn then, and probably didn't even acknowledge, probably didn't even realize I was learning them, but really, really paid off later on. Later on in my career and working with bigger teams and all of that. And nobody's perfect. I think of some of the howlers, some of the mistakes I made, but
Don't we
yeah,
all? I mean, as Nicky Lauda said, and he said it not just to me, but to on stage, you only learn by making mistakes, right? If you
yeah.
did everything perfectly all the time, you don't learn anything. So another one of those great one-liners from
So
Nicky.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and Nicky was a force of nature, wasn't he? He was
Yeah,
fantastic. Um, so yeah, I did all that, but then again, I got another opportunity at McLaren. I was approached. They wanted to do Formula 3000, which bearing in mind what I was talking about earlier on, saying, I missed out going there from F3 to F1, F3000, and I always wanted to have a go. And I knew McLaren were going to do it right, and we got this driver, Nick Heidfeld,
yeah.
and
Quick driver,
yeah,
actually.
and sorry.
Quick driver.
Absolutely, very quick. And again, I still call him mate to this day. Fantastic. So I went to do Formula 3000 with McLaren, and I ran Nick, and we won the championship in 1999. And that's a standout achievement. Again, a really small, tight team, talented people, talented drivers, and with a fellow called David Brown, and David Brown was a team boss, and I'd worked with David at Williams when he was Nigel Mansell's engineer and Alan Prost's engineer and Ayrton's engineer there in Williams. So again, Ken, when we're talking about those connections and those people that you meet in different environments and different teams in motorsport, that all came back. And we're a fantastic team spirit in the McLaren 3000 team. And just talking about valuations of the McLaren collection. So one of my old cars is F1 GTR chassis 1, right? And that's the most valuable car in the McLaren collection. Stand on me that the cheapest car, the one that's of the least value, is it's a Lola Formula 3000 car. So, but it is a championship winner from 1999 with Nick. But so from a personal point of view, my old racing cars bookend the McLaren racing car collection from the cheapest to the most expensive. So,
well, you have bounced around.
I don't know what the moral is in that, but
you have bounced around a bit, so nothing surprises me. And then hence you went on to back into F1 again.
Yeah, back into F1. But I went back in like an R&D and data acquisition capacity, which, so again, in the spirit of pushing on a little bit more and doing just always learning, that all of this was under the banner of McLaren. So joining McLaren at the end of 94, beginning of 95, all of these different types of racing, but all still working for Ron. So that was really quite cool that you're not getting stale. You're learning. You're doing different things. Different types of racing, from touring car racing to endurance racing to Formula 3000, and now back into Formula One. So it's all and now a different discipline. So I'd started to. We've spoken about manage people, but now I'm doing right. What does this look like when you're data acquisition and understanding a little bit more about car performance, car reliability, and all of this, of course, is in Formula One. So that's really quite advanced and crucial to any World Championship campaign. So that was back in Formula One.
Back in the game. So. Well, he certainly had a very diverse career, and hats off to you. Always seemed to be brave enough to take a step back to then make it forward again. So that's impressive, mate.
Yeah, thank you very much.
My career was a lot more straightforward than that.
Yours was a very clean and clear path. I mean, it's a lot of hard work to gone into it. I mean, Christ, I know exactly how much, but mine was a little bit more varied, I guess. But with that extended period of working for McLaren, just under 30 years it was. But I wouldn't swap out my time. I wouldn't swap out my time working for Frank or the Benetton years, and certainly where I started in Formula 3. No way. They're the great experiences, great people to work with. Definitely.
Well, Mark, I think we must be nearly at time now. And to be honest, I've got a whole bunch of other stuff I was wanting to ask, and we didn't even get close. This is the first question. So I think it would be some of the questions you might not like anyway. But I think fantastic career. You're still doing it now. You're still in motorsports, and hats off to you, mate. I mean, bravery for you being able to, go backwards to go forwards is hats off to you again.
Thank you very much. And so for everybody out there listening, what we'll do is so thanks for tuning in to start off with. But what we'll do in our next episode is we'll swap seats, and I'm going to ask Kenny how he got started, and then he can tell you all about his early career and those steps from outside of Formula One into Formula One, and those early steps through.
Okay, I'll look forward to that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you next week.